Ibrahim Traore was returning from a diplomatic meeting. There was no announcement at the airport. He was dressed in a mufti, a hoodie, looking very simple without his bodyguards, without his military gear, which makes it easier for everybody to identify him all over the world. Because he believed in being with the people, involving himself with the people. He boarded Air France flights and took his seat at the VIP section. He sat by the window. You can imagine sitting alone without his bodyguards, without cameras on him and everything. He was just cool. He smiled at one of the workers. Because of the dressing, with the hoodie and then in the mufti. The worker smiled back but didn't know who she was smiling with. Because of his dressing, none of them noticed his presence. One of the top business mogul who was also heading towards Ouagadougou. And because he is used toward the VIP section, he wanted them to get him the VIP section, but unfortunately the place was booked up. There wasn't any seat available. But because of what? His level, because of who he is, they had no choice than to try as much as they can to create a space for him. So you see, this is where the problem is. The plane is what? Is full of. The VIP section is full of. We have economy, which there's space available. But because of his level, what he wanted to do is that whatever means, whichever way that they are going to get him that VIP section, they must do it. Even though the whole place is booked up, the place is full up. They must create a space for him because he's used to know the word no. You can't tell him that it's not possible. It must be possible. So what they have to do is that they have to go into the plane and then see how or who they can take out of that seat so that the business mogul, Frenchman who has invested so much in most of the African countries, they must create for him because he has the money, he has the dough. You understand? So that is where the whole drama started. So the flight attendant, the senior flight attendant, must go inside and create a space by force. Now she went into the plane and they saw these two black men. But first, Ibrahim Traore was in the normal top which is the hoodie. So his seat became a little suspicious. The looks in a business class became a bit suspicious because looking at a man with a hoodie and all that, and you could see this big men, top big guy sitting at that business class. So it looks like, and secondly, he's a black man. The rest are white people, except another guy who is also a black guy. So the lady looked around and then you could see that this guy looks a bit wretched. Why don't I go there and deal with him? So she approached him and then tried to persuade him so that he would go to the economy, create space for that French mogul. She asked of a boarding pass. She went through and she realized that everything was correct. But something doesn't seem right to her because she feels like that man doesn't belong to that business class. You know, I'm looking at the kind of people sitting there. Something is wrong with that, boarding pass. So she wasn't happy with him. So she pleaded with him to move toward economy so that they bring the Frenchman into that seat where they are ready to compensate him if only he will accept it and move to that economy. But Ibrahim Traore, he said no because he knows. He knows what he was doing. What he was doing is he wanted to try something. He wanted to see something. So he wanted to see the reaction of the flight attendant so that he will know how they treat people. So Traore asks, "Why me? Why? Looking at everybody around, why do you want to move me from my seat?" The flight attendant just said, "No reasons. It's just that we want to create some space for our guests." Like, wow, really? So are you trying to tell me that guest is more important than me, right? But the lady didn't say anything. So you see, he asked, "I want to know why me. Why you want to move me from my seat? Just explain to me. If it makes sense in the first place, just explain it to me." Even though he was saying that because he wasn't even ready to move her in the first place, but he wanted to know why she's doing that. She said, no, it's for operational reasons. She couldn't give any tangible reason for that. But it's just that they want to create a space for their special guests. You understand? So when Traore asks, "Is that person special than I do?" He smiled. You know how he's very, very humble, very quiet, very calm. You understand? You know how my people are. I know some president that I know. If he should be that president, he wouldn't even wait. He can't even wait. He will make sure to display, or he will make sure to tell her who he is. I mean, just that time, he will just sort that problem straight away. But you know how Ibrahim is, very calm, very cool. He only gives a smile. You understand? Yeah, that's how I love that man. I mean, just calm, cool, collective. I mean, you understand? The lady, out of, and she's speaking on top of her tone, the arrogance setting, the pride. I mean, the pride setting, and then she started misbehaving. But, when I say misbehaving, I mean like from the way she's answering him. But he was cool. I mean, he was just taking it cool because he knows who he is. You understand? In my language, I said, I'm in Pankasa. So it was just cool, looking at what will happen. Because Ibrahim Traore is becoming too difficult, or he was too difficult for her liking, she walked back to the corporate, spoke to the captain, and returned with a decision. You understand? Both of them, for that one, he didn't hear what they said. She came back and saw another black man at the business class. So she approached him. So Traore was just looking at the scene whilst this lady approached another black man, trying to move him from his seat to economy. Why? Because they are expecting a special guest. Traore was confused. I mean, he was like, what is going on? So he stood up, approached the lady and said, look, it's enough. You better stop what you're doing. Are you doing this based on color or based on tickets? Because it doesn't matter your color, it doesn't matter who you are. So long as you've gone for, business class, you are supposed to be at business class. So you cannot force somebody with the business class to go towards economy. You understand? So this is where Traore has his point. So at the end of the day, you are trying to force the young man in his early 20s to move towards economy. So the young man also asks, why me? You understand? Because the whole thing doesn't make sense in the first place. You get my point. But because of this flight attendant, I mean, she's a senior flight attendant, and she's not used to the word no. So she was expecting that things would be easier for her. Now, because they were not cooperating with her, and she said it in French, like, these people are just bunch of troublemakers. You understand? And even as for Traore, she was seeing him as a troublemaker. You understand? You did not allow me to move you from your seat to economy. I'm talking to another person. Then you move from your seat and then approach me and then start trying to defend that black guy. It means that Traore is becoming a troublesome person in the flight. So you can imagine the whole scene, the whole drama. Yes, this is what really happened. So finally, the gentleman was moved from his seat to the economy. So then the French businessman, who has invested so much in Africa or whatever, he was brought in with a smile. She received him with a smile, directed him to his seat, gave him some wine, powerful champagne. I'm not talking about this cheap champagne. I'm talking of very expensive champagne. You understand? With some red carpets and all that, some towel. VIP treatment. You understand? So that's what she did for him just as he arrived. We are looking at what money, what your money can do. You understand? It's not about just buying the VIP ticket and sitting there and you are nobody. They are talking about somebody. So that's exactly what she was doing. And Traore was just quiet, very humble, very sweet looking. You know him, very nice looking. He was cool and watching things, observing things, because he knows that very soon, as they arrive in Ouagadougou, the whole world will get to know what's really happening in the plane. And the whole world will get to know who has been insulted in the plane. You understand? Yeah. So it's a lesson to learn. He was just trying to build up something and teach this woman a lesson she will never forget. You understand? But you see, Clara wasn't sure of something. She wasn't so sure about this man because, you see, she has never been challenged that way before. There's something about that man, but she wasn't sure who really he is. So she just stood up, walked to him and asked, "Sir, would you like something? Would you might care for something?" And then Traore just said, "Okay, don't worry. Water is fine." After talking to him, no apology, no courtesy, nothing. She just arrogantly walked out from him. Yeah, so he was just quiet. Moved to the businessman. So she asked the businessman about, his projects in Africa and said, Burkina Faso is even lucky to have me. You understand? You know, get the whole thing. Like, the president is there. You don't know that was the president, or you don't know that is the president. So somebody asks you, what about your projects in Africa? So, oh yes, Burkina Faso is even lucky to have me. You understand? We are bringing order to chaos. So unknown to this man, the very man that is insulting, you understand, is just sitting 2 rows away from him. You understand? But he didn't know. See, that's why when we are talking, you just have to be careful in life. Anything can happen. You understand? You don't know where you find yourself. So whenever you are talking, you just have to be careful. So the plane took off. I mean, everybody was calm. I mean, nobody noticed him except one woman who was sitting and then saw Ibrahim Traore and whispered to one of the passengers, saying that, look, that is our president too. You know, you can imagine. Their eyes were widely open. I mean, those who heard it, they were like, whoa. But everybody was calm. Nobody said anything. So it's as if nothing has happened. They just moved on. Ibrahim Traore was calm. He was just angry, but calm, waiting to touch the grounds. I mean, to touch the grounds of what Ouagadougou, that is Burkina Faso. Just as they touched the tarmac at the airport, some of the passengers noticed long SUV convoy, black convoy. They saw military combat vehicles also as well, with soldiers with their guns. Traore already, the way he moves with his people. So one of the passengers jokingly said, well, are we entering into war zone? Some laughed over it, and then they just ignored it. Just when he said, are we entering into war zone, one passenger said, no, it's just a military protocol. I'm sure there's somebody important in our midst that they are coming to pick up. So that was what he replied. One of the passengers replied. So the French businessman, the CEO, said, oh, I'm sure I'm the one they are coming to receive. He said it jokingly, and then he laughed. And he was even ready to step out of the plane before anybody else. But just as the passengers were looking outside, they saw presidential guards. They saw top Burkina Faso ministers lined up, the military with their guns by their side. So you can clearly see that there's a president in that plane. But nobody noticed that it was Traore. Nobody noticed Traore, that he was the one sitting inside the plane. So Clara saw the thing and she was like, wow, what is going on? Why are all these people here? What is going on? Who are they coming to receive? And then the CEO, the French Mugu, he said, oh, of course, I'm the one they are coming for. You understand? Because he believes himself. With the money is power. You understand? So that was what he believes, that the people came there because of him. So the French CEO proudly said, yes, I told you, these people came because of me. So he stood up first, trying to move out of the plane. Just then, this military man walked into the plane, looked at faces, and looked at seat number 2 and noticed Ibrahim Traore sitting by the side of the window. Just as he noticed Traore, he gave him a salute, a proper military salute, and said, welcome, Mr. President. The whole cabin, everybody was quiet. They were shocked. They were perplexed. They were phantom. The whole place became charged, and they were like, whoa. I want to ask you a question. If you were to be in Clara's shoes, the flight attendant, the one who disrespected Traore, how would you feel? What would be your reaction? How would your facial expression be like? I'm just asking you, just answer me. Write the comment down there. How would you feel? What would be your reaction? That you've disrespected the president of Burkina Faso. You had opportunity to meet him. You didn't know he was the one, so you disrespected him, spoke to him anyhow, raised your voice just because he was trying to resist what you are saying or what you were saying, and then you decide to show him power, like you are the top, you are the organa in that plane. What will be your reaction? Just let me know at the comment section. So just as Clara was shocked, the CEO was also shocked. The CEO looked at Clara And by then, Traore was walking out of the plane. So the CEO asked, "Is this the president of Burkina Faso?" He was asking Clara, that's the flight attendant. Just then, Ibrahim Traore turned and said yes. Yeah, he responded by he wasn't angry, he wasn't proud. You understand? Like some Africans would do. He wasn't proud. He was just cool. I mean, he took it cool and just moved out of the plane. So, I mean, you can imagine what was going through the minds of the two. I mean, the CEO and then the Clara. Just as the president moved out of the plane, another officer walked in, and then he said, "You two, I mean the CEO and Clara, you two have to follow me for questioning." And then they asked, "Why?" They said, "Yes, you have disrespected the president of Burkina Faso on our soil, so follow us for questioning, and that is direct order." Then she said, this has to be a mistake. I was only doing my job. I never disrespected him, but I was just doing my job as the senior, flight attendant." So both of them were handcuffed and moved out of the plane. All passengers watched in disbelief, all their pride swallowed. All eyes were on the two with handcuffs. I mean, the flight attendant and the CEO who were handcuffed. Everybody was looking at them because people were asking like, "Whoa, what is going on?" He stood before the president and addressed the world what has really happened in the plane. In Burkina Faso, we don't look at men's skin to measure their worth. We don't bow to money. This is old colonial habits. Here we respect dignity, humanity, and our people. That is the new Africa. This story spread like wildfire. That second, images were all over the place. Those two handcuffed were all over the place. The press conference and everything, I mean, was all over the internet. It was all over. Social media exploded. At the Ministry of Justice, the two, Clara and the CEO, were charged for insulting the president on their soil, abuse of power, and intimidation. The French embassy intervened. Phone calls started coming, protocols, diplomatic calls started coming in. But Traore gave a response. This is not a colony. This is a sovereign nation. They will face justice, just like anyone else. Air France has to come in quickly to do damage control. The airline quickly stepped in to apologize with empty regret. So Burkinabe people quickly called in to boycott the flight. Some Africans joined in. Clara and the businessmen, they were still locked up. Outside Ouagadougou, she broke down in tears, explaining what really happened. "I didn't know who he was. I was just following procedures." The investigator was looking at her coldly and said, "You don't need to know who he was. You just needed to treat him like a human being." The CEO is now facing potential legal action both in Burkina Faso and in France. He was just trying to use his influence to escape, but the court made But the court made a ruling. No immunity and no special treatment. Let justice be equal.